Qapla World, it's Bird of Prey 5. Today we're reviewing the second animated short track released yesterday, The Girl Who Made the Stars. To be blunt, I found it boring, and I found myself questioning who was the intended audience of this short track. This is not an episode of Star Trek in anything but name. It's simply a dad telling his daughter a bedtime story to make her less afraid of the dark. We open to a thunderstorm in space. Yes, a thunderstorm in space around a space station. So the thunderstorm is making nighttime on the station extra scary. We see lightning flashing through the window as we move into the bedroom of one young Michael Burnham, who despite being animated with big baby Yoda eyes, still looks like an annoying brat. She cries for her dad, who comes running in. It was so scary, she explains as she hugs a tardigrade doll, because why not? The dad knows, the shadow again. And bratty Michael says, "Computer, aluminum!" Trying to turn the lights on. I guess that's supposed to be cute. She struggles to find the word illuminate, which her father tells her, and then she insists that's what she said in the first place. Make it brighter. Michael says she feels like it's you, me, and mommy out here in the middle of nothing, and it's going to eat us, and nobody would ever know. She ends with, "I hate being scared," and the dad says he knows. Then, a clear graduate from the Deanna Troi School of Psychology, the father asks if maybe she hates the idea of being scared more than actually being scared. One of those people. Michael says, "Dad, I'm too little to know what that means." Michael asks if she could sleep with all the lights on, and her dad quickly says, "Sure." But what if instead he tells her about a girl about Michael's age who had just a tiny light, and she happened to change the entire universe forever? Michael says, "Nuh-uh," but her eyes open wide and she looks at her dad with amazement, and he asks, "Do you want to hear the story of the girl who made the stars?" She enthusiastically says yes, bobbing her head up and down like a dumb puppet. The father begins, 1,000 centuries ago, in Africa, the first people celebrated the sun. And back then, there were no stars in the night sky, and I suppose for the sake of this story, no moon either, because it never gets mentioned. That must be some other story. The boy who barfed up the moon, maybe. Anyway, when the dark came, and the people were afraid, they gave their fear a name. The night, which in this story takes the form of a big black snake with red glowing eyes. The village law said no first person was allowed to travel at night. The first people were hunter-gatherers, just beginning to farm, and farming the same land over and over again is not good, so everyone just freaked out. And those are the dad's words, not mine. "What are we going to do?" asks a village elder to a group of adults. "We'll have no land left in which to farm." And then a little girl raises her hand. A little girl who looks suspiciously like Michael Burnham says, "We can go past the far mountains. We can find new land." Duh! And everyone bows down to her brilliance and... Oh wait, is it not time for that yet? Okay, right. So the mean guy says that would take longer than a day, probably longer than 2 days, and tells the kid to go play, which the real Michael Burnham takes great offense at. She brattily says, "That's just rude." Funny, I thought the guy was being amazingly polite, and where were her parents anyway? So the girl set out on her own to save her village, and she was joined by a friend, a glowing firefly. So they start walking down a path. Of course, if there's a path, it means someone has already been there to clear a path, and enough people use it to keep it clear. So even though it's nighttime now, she's probably not far from her village yet. Oh, was I not supposed to notice the path? Oh, and somehow she trapped the firefly in a giant empty egg to increase its brightness, I guess. The dad continues, "The darkness found her, and there was only one thing to do: run!" As she gets chased by the big black night snake. She trips and drops the egg. It breaks. The firefly flies out and leaves her ass behind. He's not getting eaten by any snake. She huddles in the grass, and the dad says, whatever was coming, she didn't want to see it. She hid her face in her hands and waited for the end to come. But then, out of the darkness, she sees a light. and a light comes crashing to the ground. She follows the light. Yes, Michael, please, walk into the light. Even though she was scared, she kept going, says the dad. And there she found the most incredible thing, a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. Oh, wrong story. No, she finds an alien spaceship, a being unlike anything she's ever seen. Oh my God, it's Harvey Cthulhu! It's Harvey Cthulhu! First she thought it was the night beast, but when she really looked it in the eyes, she wasn't scared. She was curious. And when the being saw her, he didn't see a little girl full of fear. He saw a brave warrior whose light shined brighter than she could ever imagine. Brighter than the whole galaxy, which really means nothing since there were no stars yet. How bright could a starless galaxy be? It showed her outside her valley was a whole universe just waiting to be explored. But the first step was conquering fear. The girl asks the alien, how can she tell everyone they don't have to be afraid? And the alien responds, you must show them. And he creates a glowing ball for her to carry back to the village, a gift for her. And with his ship fixed, he disappeared into the night. Good thing the alien could fix a crashed ship in just a few minutes. When she came back home, the elder was waiting to scold her, and still no parents. The elder says, you could have been eaten, or worse. What's worse than eaten? I mean, if she was something to eaten, at least, the eaten would still be worse. And the elder continues, and you've angered the darkness, worst of all. She cuts him off and says, no, I brought us the light. And she opens the big glowing ball that the elder had ignored the entire time, out of which all the stars in the sky pour out and take their place in the heavens. It surrounds the entire planet with glowy stars. And the dad continues, and the girl brought the stars to the first people. She lifted them because she was brave. And at this point, the entire village begins to literally bow down to the little girl. She is their new god. I'm not making this up. And they were never scared of the light again. She was a great explorer, navigating by the constellations, which isn't really a thing since the constellations are always moving. And the people came to follow her. And the girl became a queen. And then Michael Burnham, back in her bed, says it was the light inside that guided her. And her dad says, exactly. And when she knew that, there was nothing to be afraid of. And then, of course, young Michael Burnham says, Dad, I don't think I need the nightlight anymore. And a very proud dad says, good night, my queen, and kisses her on the head. Little Mikey says, I love you, Daddy. And he says back he loves her too. And she puts her head down and closes her eyes and begins imagining herself as the queen once again. In this final scene, the queen makes a war cry, charges at the night monster, and for the very last frame, shoots an arrow up the pee-hole of the patriarchy. The symbolism is hysterical, but nothing else is. And there we have it, the story of the girl who made the stars, where we learn the girl didn't really make anything. The stars were a gift from an alien. If anyone made the stars, he did. I can criticize the writing and the bad science. Constellations aren't really used for navigation, other than to find a North Star in the Northern Hemisphere. But in sub-Saharan Africa, south of the equator, you can't see the North Star. But the only real Star Trek science in this episode were the thunderstorms in space, which, while ridiculous, aren't entirely without precedent in the Trek universe, even if their implementation was especially cringy in this episode. The main problem with this episode is, it's just not Trek. Why would anyone waste their time and money on doing a 7-minute episode that doesn't tell a Star Trek story? If it was funny or dramatic or otherwise riveting, it could be excused, but this is children's level content. This isn't competing with an audience for Star Trek. This is competing with Dora the Explorer. If I wanted to watch kids shows, I'd watch kids channels. It's also telling, I think, that the girl in this story becomes a queen and is literally worshipped by her people. Someone involved in this story really endeavors to be worshipped. I can't imagine what they must really be like. It's not enough the girl gets accepted as an equal. She has to become the supreme leader. My final verdict is disappointed. And like a child who hears this from their parents, so too should the writers, producers, and directors of short tracks be even more worried than if a parent had yelled and screamed at them for doing something wrong. I won't even rate this episode because it simply isn't Star Trek. Even as a hardcore Trek fan, you would miss nothing if you simply skipped this episode. Qapla doesn't even sound like an appropriate sign-off. There's no Qapla here. Alpaca, everyone. Alpaca.